Hello everyone. Here in this video, we will briefly go through the topic on dry corrosion. It's unit 4 and module 2. In the module 1, we briefly introduced corrosion. What is that? And we spoke about different theories of corrosion. And you might remember that corrosion is a chemical or electrochemical reaction between a material and its environment that produces a deterioration of the material and its properties. We also discussed that any material for that matter will deteriorate, but in this module, we will only speak about metals. Other material like polymers and composites, ceramics, all these kinds of things, we are not going to discuss in this one. We are only focusing on corrosion of metal. Then when we discussed the theories of corrosion, we said that the corrosion may happen in the presence of water, that is wet corrosion, which we will cover later. And if there are no water available, then there can be dry corrosion or chemical corrosion. Wet corrosion is also referred as electrochemical corrosion. Okay. If there are no oxygen, there are no water, then there can be reaction of the metal with oxygen, which is oxidative corrosion. There can be reaction of the metal with other gases like chlorine sulfur dioxide, hydrogen sulfide, all these kind of things. That is our corrosion by other gases. And there can be liquid metal corrosion when you have one metal at very elevated temperature. Let's say one metal is liquefied and the other metal is not liquefied, then the solid metal can get dissolved in the liquid metal. If there are cracks in the solid metal, liquid metal can enter the cracks, and then it can solidify, and then the volume will increase and the cracks will become more. So these kind of corrosions may happen in liquid metal corrosion. But in this lecture, we will mainly focus on oxidation corrosion. So let's say we have a metal bar in here, and this part of the metal bar is exposed to oxygen that is present in the atmosphere. Metal in let's assume that metal is M, some random metal. So metal is this metal in here. The oxidation state is 0. And metals all the time, they want to lose their electrons and go to a cationic state. Okay, so the metals will always try to lose these electrons and will go to some sort of a positive state. Metal goes to the cationic state and electrons are there. So the metal lost some electrons, and loss of electron is oxidation. So this metal has been oxidized in this place. Now, when you have oxidation reaction, there has to be a reduction reaction associated with this one, because there cannot be free electrons flowing around. So there has to be somebody who will take in these electrons. You have oxygen in here, which is electronegative element, and it will very happily accept all those electrons. It can go to this oxide state. You have the metal cations and the oxide ions in there. That means there is 4 electrons that the metal atoms lost. Oxygen will get those electrons. So here oxygen has been absorbed. That means there's a gain of electrons, it's a reduction reaction. So our reaction is complete. Now there will be a metal oxide formed. A layer will be there. So where there was metal in the very beginning, now we have a metal oxide in here. This part we started with some sort of a metal, now it's not metal anymore. That means corrosion has happened. And how? Because of the reaction of the metal with atmospheric oxygen, now we have an oxide layer. The whole reaction, metal plus oxygen, gives you metal cations and oxide ions. So in total, you can say that there has been this oxide layer formed in there. So when the oxide layer is formed, there can be several different types of situations. This oxide layer can be stable. If this oxide layer is stable, corrosion will be prevented. Let's talk about it. So this happens to metals like aluminum, tin, lead, and copper, something like that one. If you have a slab of this metal present in here, there are oxygens in here. And as we just discussed, there will be an oxide layer formed. And if this oxide layer is stable, that means it doesn't react with anything. Then these oxygens, now they don't have any access to the metals. They are separated by this oxide layer. So no corrosion will happen, because the metal slab that is hidden behind this oxide layer, that doesn't have any access to oxygen anymore. So if the metal oxide is stable, corrosion will be prevented. This example you can see for copper, bronze, all these kinds of metals. So for example, this is a very well-known example. Statue of Liberty. It's made out of copper, and it was commissioned in 1886. That means more than 130 years ago. So it's made out of copper, so it should look something like this. But you know, that the Statue of Liberty is greenish. Why? Because this copper, the outside layer of this copper statue, that has formed the oxide layer, and that oxide, copper oxide, is green in color, and that oxide layer has formed a very stable cover over the statue, and that's why there has been several maintenance works and all, but in general the statue has been there for 130 years, and though it's made out of a quite reactive material like copper, nothing happens because the outer layer is copper oxide and that is very stable. That has prevented further corrosion. Similar thing happens with bronze statues. So this is 130 years old. There are bronze statues in there which are there for hundreds and hundreds of years. And if you have seen any of them, you will see that they are slightly greenish like this one, because bronze is mostly copper. So the copper has made this copper oxide layer on this one, and this statue has not corroded any further. So if the metal oxide that has been formed is stable, further corrosion of the metal will be prevented. No corrosion. Now the metal oxide can be unstable as well, and then also corrosion doesn't occur. Why? This thing happens with noble metals like silver, gold, platinum, all these kinds of things. When they have access to this atmospheric oxygen, a layer will be formed of oxide of these metals, and this oxide is very unstable. That means it's very quickly and readily decomposes. Oxygen is released and the metal is also released. Okay, so the outer layer is very dynamic, so it just goes in between these two states. It will form an oxide, and again metal will be recovered from that one. Again oxide will be formed, metal will be recovered. That means the second layer, third layer, nothing happens to them. The topmost layer is dynamic, so further corrosion doesn't happen anymore. Happens to the noble metals like this. In the third case scenario, metal oxide can be volatile. In that case, surface will be exposed and corrosion will continue. Happens to metal atoms like molybdenum, for example. You have molybdenum slab in here, oxygen is there, there will be oxide layer forming. Now it's a volatile oxide, that means it will just evaporate, it will just go away, and the second layer of metal will be exposed right now. So that can interact with oxygen, and that will create some volatile oxide again, will go away. The third layer is exposed right now. So if the metal oxide is volatile, surface will be exposed and corrosion will continue. In the fourth case scenario, the metal oxide can be porous, and then also corrosion will continue. This happens to metals like calcium, barium, magnesium, all these kinds of metals. So if this slab is there, again with oxygen, they form an oxide layer, but now the metal oxide is porous. That means it's not enough to cover the whole metal surface. There are all these gaps in here. So through these gaps, the oxygen atom molecules can enter, and they can keep on interacting with the metal ions hidden behind it. Okay, so if the metal oxide is porous, there are gaps. Through those gaps, oxygen can enter, and the corrosion will keep on going. Okay, so if the metal oxide is porous, corrosion will continue. So these are the simplified 4 scenarios that we spoke about. Your metal oxide can be stable, like aluminum or copper. There will be no further corrosion. Your metal oxide can be unstable, like gold and silver. Then also there will be no further corrosion. But if your metal oxide is volatile, like molybdenum oxide, it will just go away. Corrosion will continue. If your metal oxide is porous, like calcium, magnesium, like this, then also corrosion will continue. So that is the summary of this one. Now we need a way to quantify these kind of things, like whether corrosion will continue or not when these oxidative corrosions happen. That means metal is reacting with oxygen and forming some sort of oxide. We have to quantify what is going on in there. So now we know if you have magnesium like this, so when the oxide is from 1 unit amount of magnesium metal, 1 unit amount of magnesium oxide is formed, and based on whatever crystal packing they have, the oxide may have lower volume than the metal. In that case, there will be this kind of pores or gaps on the oxide layer. But if the oxide has more volume than the metal, then there will be a cover like this. And if the oxide has very hugely high molecule than the metal, then there will be some sort of a chipping off effect in there. We will discuss this later. So in these cases, there are these 3 types of situation that can happen. And to quantify this thing, we use this Pilling-Bedworth rule. In here, we calculate a specific ratio. Volume of the metal oxide divided by the volume of the metal. So if the volume of the metal oxide is higher than the metal, that means there will be a cover. But if the volume of the metal oxide is lower than the volume of the metal, then the oxide will not be able to cover all the metal surfaces. There will be gaps like this. So When we have to calculate PV ratio, we have to calculate the volume of the elementary cell of the metal oxide, and we have to divide it by the volume of the elementary cell of the metal. But you can imagine this is not very easily done. So you cannot really directly calculate the volume of the elementary cell of a crystal. So that is quite difficult. So we simplify this thing. We calculate the molar volume of the metal oxide divided by the molar volume of the metal. And that will give you the PV ratio. And based on that one, whatever ratio we have, whatever value we have, we can have some simplified rules like whether corrosion will continue or not. So Pilling-Bedworth ratio is the corrosion of the metals, is the ratio of the volume of the elementary cell of the metal oxide to the volume of the elementary cell of the corresponding metal from which the oxide is created. And now we said that, okay, to calculate this RPB or Pilling-Bedworth ratio, we can take the ratio of the molar volume of the oxide divided by the molar volume of the metal. How can we do that one? We can take the molecular mass of the oxide and divide it by the density of the oxide. That will give us the molar volume of the oxide. Similarly, for the molar volume of the metal, we can take the we can take the atomic mass of the metal and we can divide it by the density of the metal. And we have to multiply this thing with a n number. What is n number? N number is the number of atoms of metal per one molecule of the oxide. We will discuss this thing just slightly afterwards. So you can do this one, you can simplify this thing if you wish, and that will give you the RPB ratio. If you know the molecular mass of your oxide and atomic mass of your metal, if you have a periodic table, you can just know that one. And you need to know the density of the oxide and the density of the metal. That is also from any literature that has been calculated. You can have those data as well. And you need to know how many metal atoms are there in the oxide. That you know from the structure of the metal oxide. You know everything, you input those data, and you have your Pilling-Bedworth ratio. Now, from that one, you can make some simplified rules. The Pilling-Bedworth ratio can be less than 1, more than 2, or it can have a value in between 1 and 2. What happens if it's less than 1? When the ratio is less than 1, that means the volume of the oxide is lower than the volume of the metal. That means when the oxide is formed, the oxide won't be able to cover the whole metal surface. The coating layer is too thin and there will be no protective effect. That means corrosion will go on. When we have the PV ratio in between 1 and 2, then the oxide coating provides protective effect. Why? Because now the volume of the oxide is higher than the volume of the metal. So from unit amount of metal, there will be more oxide formed. That means that oxide will make a cover over the metal. But if that volume goes too high, if this PP ratio goes above 2, then this kind of a chipping effect will happen. That means the oxide layer is too much and then they will push against one another and then they will chip off. And if they chip off from the surface, that means the surface is again bare in these cases, and in that case, there will be no protective effect. Let's look at an example. So here we have magnesium oxide. Magnesium oxide MgO, the oxide density is 3.65. We have atomic weight of the metal, which is 24.3. We have the density of the metal, which is 1.74, and the molecular weight of the oxide is 40. We have to calculate the PV ratio. So we can input the molecular weight of the oxide is 40.3, density is 3.65, atomic weight of the metal is magnesium 24.3, and density of metal 1.74. Number of metal atoms in the oxide is MgO. There is only one magnesium atom in the oxide. That means the N number becomes 1. And if you simplify these things, you get a number which is 0.79, which is obviously less than 1. That means there will be no protective effect from some magnesium. The amount of oxide formed has lower volume. It will not be able to cover the whole magnesium layer. That's why corrosion will continue. Now, the only two things you need to know in here is the density of the oxide and the metal density that we have to provide you. But if we don't give you the atomic weight of the metal from the periodic table, you can calculate that one. If you are not given the molecular weight of the oxide, it's magnesium 24.3 plus oxygen 16, that 40.3, that you can calculate very easily if you just know the atomic weight of the metal, which you can get from the periodic table. Another example can be aluminum oxide. So Al2O3, you have the oxide density, atomic weight of aluminum is 27, density of aluminum is 2.7, molecular weight of the oxide is 102. So we have to calculate the PV ratio. We can input all this data in this formula. We have all the data in here. N number Al2O3, that means in one molecule of the oxide there are 2 aluminum atoms, so N number becomes 2. And if you simplify this thing, you get a value that is 1.38, which is more than 1. That means when you form aluminum oxide from aluminum, there will be a protective layering. The metal beneath will be covered completely by oxide. So there will be a protective layer and corrosion will not continue. So you can try this. There are potassium oxide, sodium oxide, calcium oxide, all these kinds of oxide. If you input those data, you will see that the PV ratio goes below 1 and they will not be protective. If you have nickel, it's 1.69, which is more than 1 but less than 2. So that's why it will be protective. And if you talk about chromium oxide or something like that one, you have a PV ratio which is higher than 2. So above 2 is exactly in the borderline. Above 2, there will be chipping effect. So protective layering will not happen. If you check Wikipedia, you can have all these examples of PV ratio for several metals. So for example, potassium, sodium, lithium, strontium, calcium, barium, and magnesium will have PV ratio less than 1, so they will not be protective. If you have aluminum, lead, platinum, zirconium, zinc, hafnium, nickel, iron, titanium, iron mixed oxide, then they have a PV ratio from 1 to 2, so that is protective. And then if you go beyond chromium, ferric iron, silicon, tantalum, niobium, and vanadium, the value is higher than 2. That means there will be chipping effect. They will not be protective anymore. You might notice there are 3 irons in there. So you have ferric, which is protective. You have ferrous, which is protective. You have ferric, which is not protective, and you have the ferrous ferric mixture, which is at the very borderline. So depending on how much ferric and ferrous you have, this for iron, it might have a protective or not protective layer. Most of the time, this will chip off. You have seen rusting happening. So ferric iron, if it has higher ratio, that means this will just go above 2 and then there will be further corrosion happening. So that is all about Pilling Bedworth ratio. This is almost 100 years old theory, and it's not perfect. There are several problems with this. This is a very simplified version, so that if you know certain things, if you know the density of metal and its oxide, if you know the atomic weight of the metal and molecular weight of the oxide, then if you know the structure of the oxide that has been formed, you can very easily calculate a ratio, and based on that one, you can take a guess whether there will be a protective layer or not. But here you may notice that we are assuming that oxygen needs to diffuse through the oxide layer to the metal surface. But in real case scenario, it's not so easy. In many cases, the metal ion that diffuses through the air oxide interface. Okay, so that's why. So there is a very assumption that we made, which might not be correct. So I mean, simply speaking, crudely, this rule holds. It's fine, but it's not a very hard and fast rule. Okay. And also you may remember that we are not considering the volatility of the oxide. If it's a protective oxide, PV ratio is more than 1, but the oxide is volatile, it will just go away. So there will not be a protective layer. Okay. So this is okay to guess, but this is not a very binding rule to say. So that is all about oxidative corrosion and PV ratio. Thank you.